Up next, we have LO.ai, and our presenter is Sundeep. LO.ai is Tavant's groundbreaking platform designed to revolutionize lending. Powered by generative AI and our touchless lending platform, LO.ai enhances loan officer productivity, reduces sales expenses, and empowers borrowers with the knowledge and tools they need to make confident financial decisions. By streamlining the processes and leveraging advanced AI technologies, LO.ai transforms the lending landscape, driving lead conversion, increasing pipeline pull-through, and reducing onboarding time. Experience the future of lending with LO.ai. Sundeep, take us through LO.ai.
Thanks, Seb. Appreciate it. Hopefully you guys can see my PowerPoint there. Just a couple of real quick slides. So yeah, LO.ai is, we've been, as an industry, we've been wrestling with, the $11,000 cost to originate a loan. And everyone is sort of tackling the operations side, the fulfillment side of the house. What we're working on here is the sales side of the house. How can we drive down sales costs? So we really have two goals of this product. One is to reduce sales expense, increase productivity, apply cheaper resources, and increase pull-through. On the other hand, our secondary goal, just as important, is enabling borrowers. We believe very strongly that the more confident our borrowers are, the more empowered and engaged they are, it is inversely proportional to our sales costs. So if the borrowers are confident borrowers, we'll have reduced sales costs. And ultimately, this is the right thing to do. We think that we should always be doing things that are in the best interest of our borrowers. And that's what good loan officers do, right? They make sure that their borrowers understand. But the real question is, why are we doing this now? And why is the state of AI technology? So we've been looking at this since 2017, and natural language processing at that time wasn't mature enough. Now we have the controls that we as an industry need to be able to leverage this technology. So that's why we're doing it now. We have the proper controls, the compliance ability to manage this effectively in our world. So this is part of our touchless lending platform, what we're about to see, LO.ai. And as I discussed, the sales expenses inversely proportional to how confident the borrowers are. And so our goal is to make confident borrowers, engage them, educate them, measure their knowledge, and then react accordingly. The system itself will operate into kind of two different modes. For experienced loan officers, it's really an assistant mode. So it's basically doing things like capturing data, summarizing the phone call, scheduling follow-up, things like that. In coach mode, you could take a less expensive resource. You could take a person who's a really good salesperson, but really knows nothing about mortgages, and the coach will basically coach them through this process. So what we're about to walk through is, it's basically this loop. As the borrower and loan officer are talking, the coach is intercepting that call. And as they're having a conversation, each sentence is kind of going through this loop. We're extracting any meaningful data out of it. So if you say loan purpose, I'm capturing loan purpose. I can basically capture the entire 1003 orally. I'm basically determining what is the essence of the question, interacting with the foundation models, taking all that back through and telling the loan officer how to respond back to the borrower. We're also doing a handful of things. You'll see on the right-hand side, these integration services for both Tavant services as well as the customer services. So Tavant services might include our touchless lending automation platform, right? Credit income analysis, or it could be supplemental artifacts or tools like calculators. And then integration with the customer systems, right? So this is your product pricing engine, your LOS, your POS. So our coach really is going to exist as a set of services that you could integrate into anything that you wanted to. But we would also, what you're going to see today is the loan officer workbench, which would be kind of our version of it if that's what customers wanted to implement. A couple of other things to point out on here. One is the compliance guardrails. So again, very important piece of the puzzle for us as lenders is, how do we implement this in a controlled way? How do we ensure compliance? How do I sit across the chair from my regulator, the desk from my regulator, and be able to explain what's happening here and explain the controls that I'm able to put in place? And then the last thing is all the things in the middle. These are kind of the proprietary Tavant pieces, our digital loan object, our document corpus of process, dictionary, policy, and then allowing our customers, our lenders, to be able to overlay those things with their policies. And then finally, the Tavant lending graph. This lending graph serves two purposes. One is it represents absolute truth. So I don't have to re-inference, the inference engine doesn't have to recalculate things. And it allows me to have relationships, allows me to steer the conversation, steer the interaction with the LLM through the information that's in the lending graph. And the last thing in there, it says borrower T beacon score. That's the borrower engagement and confidence score. And that's basically an assessment of the experience of the borrower. And so the interaction with the model, with the coach changes. If you're a novice borrower, it'll speak to you in more novice terms. If you're an experienced borrower, it'll speak to you in more professional terms. And so as you progress as a borrower, as you get better, the system gets better. System gets more complex and speaks to you in a more complex term. So I'm going to jump into the demo, but I'm just going to stop sharing and then share the right tab just to make sure that the voice responds properly. So let me make sure I share the right tab. And I share the audio. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see my screen and we'll be able to hear it as well. So as we go into the system, this is any typical point of sale system. For demo purposes, we're going to go ahead and pick a loan that we're going to work with. And so this is now somebody dialing into your telephony system, and the loan officer accepts this phone call.
Thank you for calling First Bank Mortgage. How can I help you?
So again, just real quick, on the left-hand side is the customer engagement window. This is the actual conversation between the borrower and loan, a transcript, so to speak. In the middle there is the coach. This is now the coach chatting with the loan officer. And then on the right-hand side is data and quick actions and resources, which we'll talk about in a second. But basically what's happening here is I am the borrower. I'm speaking as the borrower, and the coach is sort of coaching the loan officer through this. So we can only be one person in this demo, so I'm going to be the borrower. I'm interested in refinancing my loan. I'm interested in refinancing my loan.
Hi there. Ready to start your home buying journey? Great. Let's get started with gathering some basic loan information. I'll need to gather some personal details. Can you tell me the purpose of your loan? Can you please provide me with your first name? Is it for purchasing a new home or refinancing an existing one?
Oh, I'm just looking to lower my rate and term. So because of the voice issues, we basically turn off the voice thing. The demo gets very confusing after that. So as the borrower, I'm interacting with the coach. So I'm just reading what's asking me for and just responding to it. My name is Sundeep Mathur. Uh, 5395 Bucknell Terrace, Cummings, Georgia, 30028. I've lived there about 7 years. Now, again, I can take this conversation anywhere I want, but what's happening inside the system is there's a skeleton process that is following. But so here it's saying, okay, I want to pull your credit score. But let's say I'm not ready for that. No, I'm not ready for you to pull my credit score. I really want to understand loan products first. So in the normal process, I would want you to pull credit. But here I'm just taking it on a tangent saying, no, tell me about products first. So here what we built into the demo is sort of a rate sheet and a bunch of different products in there. In the ultimate system, it would integrate with your product pricing engine. So what's the difference between a fixed 30 and a 7-1 ARM? So it's basically explaining the difference to me. Can you tell me what my payments would be on a 30-year fixed rate loan and 7-1 ARM? Oh, my loan amounts, my unpaid balance is about $580,000. So you can see as it's interacting with me, it's capturing this data on the right-hand side, borrower information, loan information, property information. It's capturing all of that information on site. And so at this point, the borrower may interact with the system in any way, right? They can ask you anything you want. but the system is going to try to take you back to a core process. Well, that was very helpful. What's the next step in the process? Sure, I'm ready to pull my credit. And again, I don't have to answer it in full sentences. I could just say yes. Oh, I don't have a middle name. And I've lived in my house about 7 years. Okay, so now what it's done is it sent a link to the borrower where they basically on their mobile device can go in there and basically provide in a secure fashion your social security number and authorize the credit pull. So the corresponding mobile app would allow the borrower to interact with. So here the borrower supplied the information back on the loan officer workbench. He's going to get notification that the borrower did that. We've gone ahead, used touchless lending to actually pull credit and analyze it. So at this point, the borrower and loan officer could go through whatever the lender wanted, right? You could go through debt reconciliation. You could go through any findings that touchless lending had brought out, right? So if there's bankruptcy or anything like that, you'd see not only the credit report, but then you'd also be able to look at those summary findings. So these would be things that the borrower and loan officer should discuss right then and there, right? If it's a document, then you can upload it later, just like we do today. But this is stuff that the borrower and loan officer could discuss right then and there. But whenever you're ready to move forward for the demo process, we're just going to move forward. Sure, what's next in the process? So now it's going to take me through an AVM, but for time purposes, I'm just going to do a couple of things to showcase kind of the power of the technology. I've never worked for the military. And my favorite place to vacation is Venice. And I've never worked for the military. So just to showcase on the right-hand side, this information is being captured. So not only are we capturing borrower, loan and property information, we're also capturing, so I finished running the AVM. We're also capturing personalization information. So this happens today. Borrower and loan officer, he says something, where do I like to vacation? Borrower frantically writes these things down and uses them in subsequent conversations. But let me just go back into, so after that first phone call, let me just make sure I'm still sharing the right tab. Okay, so now we're just going to go back into the system. So this is the borrower calling back, 3 days later, and they're just picking up the conversation where it left off. Again, they're dialing in.
Thank you for calling First Bank Mortgage. How can I help you?
So if you remember, I told it I never worked in the military. Would I qualify for a VA loan?
Since you've mentioned that you've never worked for the military, a VA loan might not be applicable for you. Let's focus on other loan options that suit your needs. Do you have any other preferences or questions about loan products?
So so that's, again, it's showing you all this information. The conversations are being kept, right? So it's keeping track, summarizing every phone call and feeding it into the subsequent phone calls. One thing real quick to demo is the compliance aspect of it. So if the loan officer was to, for example, say, I promise to get you a value of $2 million on your home. So it's violating Fannie Mae Seller Servicer Guide. If I was to say, someone of your race would never get a loan, it's violating fair housing in ECOA. So we're actually bouncing up whatever the loan officer says, whatever the borrower says, up against these compliance guidelines. And now this is not, we didn't code 20,000 rules to look at all these documents, 14 different documents, and codify them into 20,000 rules. This is the foundation of the LLMs taking how the borrower loan officer interaction bouncing up against them and being able to catch those things and distinguish between. So I think that was kind of what we wanted to go through. There's a lot of power as we build this thing out further. We think that this is really the way, and like I said, that we're driving this towards driving down loan officer, the sales cost, improve productivity, and ultimately borrower enablement and engagement, right? How do we make better borrowers? I think that was what I wanted to cover, and give a couple of minutes to questions.
Let's jump into some questions. The first one that I have is, why is Tavant focused on borrower engagement?
So I think we think that that's a very important part of the puzzle, right? Again, if you think about really good loan officers, this is what they do. They build these relationships with borrowers. They help them to become better borrowers. We ultimately think that that sales cost is inversely proportional to borrower experience. So one, we think will drive down costs. Two, we think the size of the pie will increase, right? We'll have more borrowers becoming more involved in the real estate community, right? The pathway to home ownership, the pathway to generational wealth. But ultimately, we think it's the right thing to do. This is our charter. This is our mission. We have to be, our North Star has to be doing what's right for the borrower. And we think that educating them, improving the tools, improving how we interact with them is key. And now with these LLMs and the very powerful foundation models, and they're getting more powerful every day, we are in a position to be able to do this. And that's why we're focused on that.
You mentioned sales expense. How will LO.ai drive down sales expense?
Yeah, so I think the sales expense part of it is, number one, it's about productivity, right? We think that we'll be able to have more loan officers be able to do more loans. Second, it's about this idea of potentially applying more cost-effective resources to be able to do some loans, right? So for a segment of loans, to do cost-effective resources. And ultimately, it's pipeline, it's pull-through. By enabling all of those automation solutions at point of sale, we think loan officers will be able to close more loans. And that's ultimately where we think will sort of drive down those sales costs. And it's the same concept that's been applied into a fulfillment, applied into the sales process.
And I'm going to squeeze in one last question before we're out of time. Do you think that the current state of AI can handle the regulatory constraints of our industry?
Yeah, for us, that was absolutely critical. We Tavant build software for a living. And so we've been using AI for a while within our software development world. But we've been able to see the power of these solutions, and we've been looking for ways to apply it into the business process. This was one area where we could drive down costs, better borrower enablement, but the regulatory controls, the risk mitigation, reporting, and we can put these controls in place now, and that's really why we took on this thing at this point in time. We think that the state of compliant AI is now, and now is the right time to be able to implement these solutions.
Well, Sundeep, thank you so much for taking us through LO.ai.
Great. Thank you so much.